Ben,
Jacob,
how you doing?
good. How are you doing?
Baruch Hashem. I could use a nap.
You can listen now. I see. You can do it while I'm reading.
That sounds like an idea. I'm not sure if it's a good idea, but it sounds like an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How have you been?
Been good. Been good. I was catching some of your stream yesterday on the Fountain of Comfort. It was very interesting.
Well, we will see. There are going to be 500 people in a small town near Miami. I think it's near Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at the Symbolic World Summit.
Interesting. Okay.
And two of those people are Jordan Peterson and Tammy Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
And among those 500 other people include many, many people I have spoken to about Fountain of Comfort,
Mm-hmm.
including board member Gage Murphy, um, who may be the perfect representative of the board to actually be there because he's getting his master's of social work.
Mm-hmm.
And Father Stephen is going to be there, and Father Eric, who has been one of the more supportive members of uh, the Jordan Peterson sphere in terms of Fountain of Comfort, will be
Mm-hmm.
there, and many, many, many other people from this little corner or the Jordan Peterson sphere will be there. So um, let's put it this way. So if the percentage chances of someone speaking to Jordan Peterson about Fountain of Comfort, who is not Gage, I
Mm-hmm.
specifically told Gage, don't think it's a good time to like try to hand him a brochure, um, although it's tempting.
Yeah.
Um, so if like of the people there who know about Fountain of Comfort, one of them were to like be having a discussion where Jordan Peterson was a part of it, I mean, the chances are actually not that close to zero
Right.
because I would say there's at least 50 people there who um, actually know Fountain of Comfort enough to like recognize the name and the people on the board of directors. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's interesting, I guess, to consider what what um, what Jordan Peterson might see as um, common, like a common denominator related between the Fountain of Comfort's efforts and his efforts, which were kind of like, this is what I found just interesting about your discussion, even though I didn't watch all of it, but I watched some of it, but I want to watch it. Um, that's really kind of like recognizing, or at least putting in the higher realm of where of the values that we should consider before we even engage in in science, not as a replacement for science, but as a way to engage in science, or the way to engage in anything in life, but recognizing that there's something that you bring in before you even deal with it.
I would really love to ask Jordan Peterson what he thinks of Jung's statement on his 80th birthday that a
Mm-hmm.
Hasidic rabbi from the 18th century anticipated his entire psychology.
Mm-hmm.
I would really love, like, I cannot imagine that he's not familiar with that statement of Jung, since he appears to, I mean, I would be surprised if he hasn't read everything Jung has written at least once.
It appears that might have been something he did. Yeah.
Yeah. Um and I And I have to say, when Jung said that, I think he must have been referring actually to Tanya,
Interesting.
because
Yeah. Mhm.
what else would he have been exposed of the Maggid's teachings other than Tanya?
Yeah. I guess it's a structured as a piece of writing. Yeah. It's a good. You know.
Yeah, and so um, first of all, I doubt very much that Jordan Peterson knows that, but I would love to have this discussion with him.
Maybe get Vervaeke and Jordan Peterson to your channel and do like just a roundtable discussion.
I'll I should I email them and see if they want to have like come on the channel just to discuss Young's perspective on Hasidism.
I mean, that's an interesting angle. I don't know. Like it's like I would be interested.
I would be interested. I would definitely listen to that discussion.
Yeah.
If either Jordan Peterson or John Vervaeke are interested in having that discussion, they should contact my people, and I will have to see if I can schedule it.
There are 4 people watching this video right now. One of them could be either John Pearson or John Vervaeke. So maybe they're hearing this right now.
Um, I suppose that is possible.
Possibility.
That is possible. I mean, I have to say, I never imagined that when I was making my videos responding to Father Stephen, that he was actually listening live to my commentaries on
Mhm.
on his stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Interesting stuff. But that just sounds fascinating to me as a mission statement, a broader mission statement. That I don't know if you agree with that, but a broader mission statement for what Fountain of Comfort is doing, which is like, yeah, um, rediscovering that or repositioning that higher realm. I forget how people discuss it when they talk about science within religion or religion within science or all those kind of things.
so the way I've been putting it is, I think psychology needs to bend the knee to theology.
Right. Yeah.
Theology is the theology is the queen of the sciences,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very funny. Like, I keep on thinking, why do we say theology is the queen of the sciences and not the king of the sciences,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think there's an important point why we say it is the queen, not the king of sciences. Um,
Mm-hmm. What is that?
because a queen appears to be more nurturing than a king,
Mm-hmm.
which actually, funny enough, the Kabbalistic rendering is not true. That's not true at all, right? The feminine is Gevura.
Right.
It's the ordering and the regulating, while the masculine is the Poretz Geder and is Hasadim, right? Um, but and so it's an interesting thing, right?
I feel like I don't know, I feel like in that way the Kabbalah and thinking about the queen as Malchut, right, is also it also always reminds me of chess too. The queen in chess is like the go getter.
She's far more powerful, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Malchut, right, is Mekabel Mekulan,
Mm-hmm.
and in a very real sense, right, um, Ateret Ba'ala, right? She is the crown of her husband,
Mm-hmm.
or literally her master, right? Um, and yeah, there's a there is a sense in which, you know, the masculine and the feminine are very complementary to the point that one cannot exist without the other, right?
Yeah.
But when we talk about theology, I have heard people say that theology is the queen of the sciences. I've never heard anybody say it's the king of the sciences. And Chazi says the Shabbat queen, right? Shabbat
Mhm.
Malkata, Yom Hashvi'i,
Yeah.
right? Um, it's interesting. Although I do have to say, there's a reason why we have Mizmor LeYom Hashmini, right? And we have Brit on Yom Hashmini, right? So there is also the eighth day.
Right.
Um, one of the things I heard, um, one of the things I heard Paul Vanderklay once say, and which like absolutely floored me, is like the Bible talks about the 7 days, not the eighth day. I'm like, which translations have you been reading, and what have they been doing with Yom Hashmini?
Mm-hmm.
Because Yom Hashmini, right, the eighth day, in the Hebrew is very prominent. I can
Mm-hmm.
imagine in the translations it tends to get lost, but in the Hebrew it's very prominent.
Where do you see that? The only thing that comes to mind here is the Parsha Shemini, but I don't know if it's related.
There's a Parsha Shmini,
Okay.
there's Shmini Atzeret, right? There's a whole holiday that
Uh-huh.
is the holiday of
Yeah.
Shmini. And then a lot of things, including Brit, right? Brit Milah is held on Yom HaShmini,
Mm-hmm.
right? I believe there's one of the Psalms is Mizmor LeYom HaShmini. Let me check to make sure I'm not making stuff up,
I know.
because it would be bad if I made up Mizmor Le'Yom Hashmini, but Mizmor Le'Yom Hashmini. Me typing in Hebrew takes forever, as you know.
Looking for it. I don't know if I can find it.
And Lemenetzeach al Hashminit. So that's what I must have been thinking of. Yeah, so there there is an instrument called the shminit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the word shmini, eighth, actually does come up in the Bible, I think, pretty regularly, but it doesn't translate.
Right.
And I think that must be why PVK was able to say such a grotesque thing, as the Bible doesn't talk about the eighth day.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Um, Well, there's an obvious answer to that, Dan, and that answer is something people really don't like, which is um, male mammals have fat tails. Um, so the distribution of anything between males and females in um, males and female mammals is the the um, the bell curve for males has a much fatter tail than the bell curve for females. And that's why even when the averages are different, right? So um, the average male human is taller than the average female human. But in a large enough sample, the um, the shortest person will always be a male,
Mm-hmm.
despite the fact that that men tend to be taller than females. The shortest person in a large distribution will always be a male. And for the same reason, you will always have much larger numbers of exceptional men in any particular thing possible, than females. More crazies, more geniuses, more people with very low IQ, more people with very high IQ. Uh, Anytime you're looking at a distribution of male mammals versus female mammals, you're going to find more in the tails of the distribution, um, more males in the tails of the distribution than females. And that's a very unpopular thing to say. The 8th day of Bayom Hashmini, we are still in the 7th day, God rested, and we are waiting for completion. The temple was an 8th structure in a 7th day world. Hence, it keeps getting destroyed. Interesting. Interesting. Chazi's saying stuff. Why, how Chazi gets so much access to my channel, I have no idea. It's very surprising. He must be a really good hacker.
He's yeah, he gets into he has all the passwords.
Apparently, all of my passwords. Apparently, yeah. We should probably start doing Tanya one of these days.
We should, yeah. This also looks this is going to be related, I think.
Okay. Should I read or do you want to read?
I can read while you sip your tea, and I assume it's tea because you're Persian. So
It's tea, but it's pomegranate raspberry tea, which is not very Persian.
yeah, do you have a sugar cube somewhere in your house?
We used to keep sugar cubes for my dad,
Mm-hmm.
but he stopped using them as well, and we ended up just like they would get old and having to throw them out. So one of two things we as Persians started doing, which was shocking. We stopped brewing fresh tea. The first time the tea got fungus over it, my parents had no idea what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it used to be like this was just what you did in Iran, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every day somebody would would brew a fresh thing of tea,
Yeah.
right? And it would end and somebody else would brew the next one, right? Well, in the United States, we were doing the same thing, but eventually it got to the point where it was being left like until it got mold on it.
Yeah.
And like the first time that happened, like what is this and how does this happen? Right? Like tea being left until it went bad was not a thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? But eventually that happened, so we eventually started using tea bags, and that's when you knew the Yeridat Hadorot had reached its zenith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and with that, we will start. Okay. והנה, שם אלוקים הוא שם מידת הגבורה והצמצום. Now, the name Elokim is the name which indicates the attribute of gvura and tzimtzum. ולכן הוא גם כן בגימטריה הטבע. Hence, it is also numerically equal to hateva, nature, which in Gematria equals 86.
Yeah. So just to kind of recap so he said in order to understand what we're talking about, we're going to have to first start talking about this idea of the Shem Havaya and Shem Elokim, right? And in PVK terms, that would be God 1 and God 2, or in Ezekiel Kaufman terms, the Arenic and the Agentic. And one of the things which Ezekiel Kaufman and historians of Hebrew um, of Hebrew theology, as well as what the Alter Rebbe is saying here, accentuate, is that that a key idea throughout Jewish monotheism was what everyone else had: Irenic gods and agentic gods. And the Hebrew Bible went, Ani Hashem Elokechem. There is one God who is both the Irenic God and the agentic God. So,
Mm-hmm.
with the Greeks, they had Zeus, who was the king of their gods,
Right.
and he was a person, and he would do things and he would get angry, but he was subject to the fates and Chronos and nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things which ruled over him even as an agentic God.
Right.
And the genius of Judaism and the Hebrew Bible was, my God spoke the world into being, right? And then goes and argues with Abraham, and it's the same God. It's one God who is both Irenic and agentic.
And how is this? Maybe it's too. Maybe this question comes in too early, but like, how is this? But also, this chapter is short, so that's why I'm allowing after to go for this. But how is this related to what we discussed in the beginning, where we're talking about people? Because it seems like people are optimizing, right? They're optimizing the lower stratum of, like, right, they're right. There's something about not recognizing the highest, the highest thing to us to aspire to, the highest ideal, the
Mm-hmm.
and there's something about trying to, right, to optimize for below, for what's below that.
Right. So we started with Chanach Lanar al Pi Darko,
Yeah.
right? Teach a child according to his wits.
Mm-hmm.
And we went into the allegory of Maimonides, right? Where he
Mm-hmm.
says, you start a child and you tell him, I'll give you some candy if you learn your ABCs.
Yeah.
And then you say, I'll buy you the type of shoes you like, or I'll get you the car you like, or hey, you'll be popular with the girls, or you'll
Mm-hmm.
get a great job, or you'll be respected, right? And eventually, once that child gets to the point of actually studying philosophy, he realizes that the point of learning Torah, learning is its own sake, and it's not it the learning the ABCs, right? That as a child he thought the most important thing about the ABCs was the fact that his dad would give him candy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He realizes, no, it's actually pretty silly to like equate the greatness of knowing your alphabet with a candy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the where people make an incredible mistake is they don't realize that the candy isn't actually lying to the child about the greatness of the alphabet. Yes, the alphabet is far, far sweeter and greater in every way than any piece of candy you're going to give him. But he still gets the candy too. And that's the amazing and great part of it. And that's Ani Havaya Lokechem, right? That's I am the Lord your God uh, who brought you out of Egypt. Is to understand that actually there is there is a greatness also in the candy,
Mm-hmm.
and in the fact that you give that child candy, and in that child wanting the candy, and that doesn't mean that at the very end, what the Greeks, the Gnostics, right? One of the great things that was incomprehensible to the Greeks about this Jewish faith was the idea of the resurrection of the dead. Because what are you telling me? Why would I want to be back in
Yeah.
this physical body?
Right.
Right? I want to escape to the heavens. Right? That's Gnosticism. That's Greek spirituality, right? When Plato talks, when we talk about platonic love, right? Ideal platonic love, it is a love that is not wet and is not generative and is not the love of a man for a woman. It's not, but the Jewish idea is the absolute opposite. The ultimate in
Mhm.
spiritual love is the type you clean up with a mop and bucket.
Well said.
It comes from one of my favorite songs. Do you know that song?
Uh,
Um, how does it go? Uh, type you clean up with a mop and bucket. I forget the name of the song. I know
band.
the Bad Touch by Bloodhound Gang. Don't listen to that song. It's not a kosher song.
Okay.
But
Uh,
if you ever do listen to that song, it is an anthem. No, that is not the song. Fraud. No, that is not the song. Um, but it is the antithesis of a sort of Gnosticism
mhm.
that I would say actually infects a lot of Christianity, where um,
It
where the ideal is the chaste marriage, and
yeah,
the ideal Jewish marriage is not chaste.
yeah. Kind of reminds me of the Woody Allen. There is a movie called Sleeper, I think, and he has this. So it's a movie about like futuristic, like it's in the future. So it has all these like pseudo innovations that he
Yeah,
assumes would be in the future, and one of them is this like a bowling ball kind of thing where people have this in the. I think it's there. Anyway, it's a bowling ball. It's in the living room, and when you touch it, and maybe like you touch it and another person touches it as well, and you both just reach an orgasm just by touching it. But it's like you
you
don't
don't actually have sex.
yeah, you just touch it the volleyball. That's the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah,
so yeah, so it's very disembodied.
yeah. Disembodied, right? And so this crashing of two seemingly opposite things, right? That is that is really what we mean when we say Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am the Lord your God.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I also had a different question in mind, but I think it's too. Let's keep reading this, and maybe I'll try to re-articulate it as well. See if we can get there. I think I need time to be able to communicate it. אוקיי, לפי שמסתיר האור שלמעלה,
Mhm.
המהווה ומחיה העולם. For it, the divine name Elohim conceals the supernal light that brings the world into existence
Mhm.
and gives it life.
Mhm.
Right, so we said it's connected to גבורה and צמצום, constriction. ונראה כאילו העולם עומד ומתנהג בדרך הטבע. And it appears as though the world exists and is conducted according to the laws of nature, independent from any supernatural influence or
Right.
divine influence.
So just like somebody says, "Oh, evolution explains how we came into this world," so we don't have to. There doesn't have to be God, right? This is called pejoratively the God of the gaps, right?
Mhm.
God is there when I don't understand. God is not there when I do understand, which is nonsensical.
Right. Okay. ושם אלוקים זה, and this
Mhm,
name אלוקים, הוא מגן ונרתק לשם הוויה.
mhm.
Is a shield and a sheath for the name Havaya.
Right. Like we said, that verse, Shemesh umagen Hashem Elohim,
Mm-hmm.
right? God is as the sun and a shield, right?
Yeah. So here is kind of like what I'm trying to, what I found fascinating about your discussion in the Fountain of Comfort, and kind of like what kind of fascinates me about a lot of things, where they confuse the technology and
Mhm.
psychology and just anything science. I called it phenomenology, but I don't think that's the right term. To the thing that is above it, that is beyond, the like the ultimate purpose of everything, the values that direct that those technologies uh, can be directed towards. And they think that the technologies themselves, those are the things that need to be optimized on their own and have their own direction. So if you optimize for the psychology, then it's all fixed. If you optimize for either that, or either psychology will tell you where to go, but it won't tell you where to go.
Right. You're thinking of teleology, right? So, for example, I have the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders,
The DSM.
DSM-5. This is, in a very real sense, the Bible of psychology,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
What's a disorder?
It's a bunch of features that are correlated with each other, or something like that. Or maybe I think they removed it the last time. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
The question becomes, what is a disorder? Is it a disorder if I want to have sex with another man?
Exactly. Okay, so that's a good question. Yeah, what's the ideal?
Yeah.
Right. And
Is that a disorder? Is that dysfunctional? What's the function? In order to say something is disordered, you have to have an idea of the ordered. And in order to have an idea of the dysfunctional, you have to say what the function is. So, what is the function? Well, that's not what we can actually answer from a scientific frame. This is Sam Harris. I mean, people blame it on Hume, the is ought distinction, but frankly, I don't think Hume came up with anything new. He just pointed out that we're being silly when we assume that you can derive an ought from an is.
mm-hmm. Yeah, this is what we covered in our great book club.
Mhm.
Um, when we talked about like the great partnership that Sachs just put it about, like you can derive a meaning from inside of the system.
Right.
So, but yeah. So anyway, that's kind of like that's just I keep seeing that. I keep seeing that. So that's just what. And I think what is happening, my hypothesis,
Mhm.
um, which is maybe a collective one as well, is that these ideals and I think Peugeot talks about it too, how he said of like the waters are going down, and it reveals the surface that's beneath the water that we didn't see before. Basically, in various fields and various sections of life, these ideals are kept being broken down
Mhm.
or challenged, and then we don't know what we're optimizing, what we're moving towards, and then they're keep and then we're all of these different opinions and different ideals come in, and we have no, because we think, because and then that's kind of what brings a lot of this into action.
Yeah.
Anyway, um okay.
Did we read this already? Lahalim?
לא, no. להעלים האור והחיות הנמשך משם הוויה הוא מהווה מאין ליש, concealing the light and life force that flows from the name Havaya and
Uh,
brings.
yeah. And the word conceal, laha'alim, is the word olam.
Oh no, yeah, world.
Yeah.
That flows from the name of Aya and brings creation into existence from not. שלא יתגלה לנבראים ויבטלו במציאות, so that they should not be revealed to the creatures, which would
Mhm.
thereby become absolutely nullified.
Yeah.
Right, and we used the analogy of the metaphor of the sun for this last time.
Yeah.
והרי בחינת גבורה זו וצמצום הזה הוא גם כן בחינת חסד שהעולם ייבנה בו. The quality of this gvura and tzimtzum, this constriction, is also an aspect of chesed, of mercy, through which the world is built.
Mhm.
וזו היא בחינת גבורה כלולה בחסד. And this is the quality of gvura which is included in chesed. והנה, התחללות המידות זו בזו, נראה לעין דאיו וגרמוי
איהו וגרמוהי חד.
איהו וגרמוהי חד, שאין מידותיו. From the mutual inclusion of the attributes, it is evident that he and his causations, i.e. his attributes, are one. כי מאחר שאין בייחוד גמור עמו, לכן הן מתייחדות זו בזו וכלולות זו מזו. For since they are in complete unity with him, they therefore unite with each other and are comprised of each other. כמאמר אליהו, ואנט הוא דקשיר לון מייחד לון וכולי, ובר מנח לית יחודה באילי וכולי.
Yeah, late Yehuda Be'ilae, right? So I think we once went through Petichat Eliyahu in the Tikkunei Zohar. If we haven't, we can do it again. It's a good thing to know well. But yeah, so there's this concept in Petichat Eliyahu which actually in many congregations is said, in some congregations is said before each prayer service. Actually, many Sephardic congregations, people will say it and then say a Kaddish. Many people recite it every day, right? And there's this idea in which it says that all of the Sephiran, right, are brought together and are together, and if one were to God forbid separate one for the other, it would, as if it would create some sort of separation within God himself.
Right. וזהו שכתוב, והשבות אל לבבך כי השם הוא האלוקים. This then is the meaning of the scriptural phrase, and take it unto your heart that Havaya is Elokim. פירוש, ששני השמות אלו הם אחד ממש. That is, these two names are actually one. שגם שם אלוקים המצמצם ומעלים האור הוא בחינת חסד, כמו שם הוויה. For even the name Elokim, which conceals and contracts the light, is a quality of chesed, just like the name Havaya. משום שמידותיו של הקדוש ברוך הוא מתייחדות עמו בייחוד גמור. For the attributes of the Holy One, blessed be He, unite with Him in a complete unity. והוא שמו אחד, שמידותיו הן שמותיו. And He and His name are one, for His attributes are His names.
So to continue that analogy that we were using, yes, the letters that the child learns to read are sweet, and the honey is sweet, and the both of them are sweet, and that's the surprising part.
The surprising part, both of them are sweet.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I get it. I get what you're saying. You're relating it to the chesed as well.
Yeah.
Um, ואם כן, since this is so, ממילא תדע שבשמיים מעל ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. You will consequently know that in the heavens above and on the earth below אין עוד. Nothing exists besides God. פירוש שגם הארץ החומרית שנראית יש גמור לעין כל, היא עין ואפס ממש לגבי הקדוש ברוך הוא. This phrase that we gave means that even the material earth, which appears to everyone's eyes to be actually existing, is not an utter nothingness in relation to the Holy One, blessed be He. כי שם אלוהים אינו מעלים ומצמצם אלא לתחתונים. For the name Elohim obscures and contracts only for the nether creatures.
So this is the Alter Rebbe's explanation of Tzimtzum, right? How can we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu removed himself from any place when we know Mamala Kol Ha'olam Kuvodo, right? His glory fills the entire earth. The way we can understand that is that it is only something as it appears to us that God has been removed, but really the light is everywhere as it was in the very beginning. You muted yourself. Yeah.
Right, so it's just from our angle.
Yeah.
ולא לגבי הקדוש ברוך הוא, מאחר שהוא ושמו אלוקים אחד, but not only for the Holy One, blessed be He, since He and His name Elohim are one, ולכן גם הארץ ומתחת לארץ הן עין ואפס ממש לגבי הקדוש ברוך הוא. Therefore, even the earth and that which is below it are not an utter nothingness in relation to the Holy One, blessed be He. ואינן נקראות בשם כלל, אפילו בשם עוד, שהוא לשון תפל. And are not called by any name at all, not even by the name od, or else, which would indicate a subordinate status. כי מאמר רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, יהודה ועוד לקרוא. As in the statement of our sages of blessed memory, Yehuda ve'od likro, does a verse in the Torah require secondary substantiation from the customs of the land of Judah?
So in I think I remember this. This Gemara, it's one of the few pieces of Talmud that I learned. So it's talking about where we learn something out from, and it gives a Torah verse.
Right.
And it also mentions the customs in the land of Judah. And so the Gemara says, why do I need both, right? And so he's accentuating that this word od means something else, something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess there in the Gemara, it's something it's something lesser than, right? If I have it from the Torah, why would I need a custom, right? So even if you're going to put it that way, that it's something subordinate, no, ein od, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is not even a subordinate, right? And this is actually one of the things that I keep on repeating to our good friends, the Eastern Orthodox monarchical Trinitarians, is none of the hypostases of God are God, right? Because they are hypostases. They are not atzmut umahut, right? So hu shmo echad, right,
Mm-hmm.
does not mean that we chas v'shalom bring atzmut umahut down into the comprehensible, it means that which is comprehensible is truly part of. So Shem Elohim is truly part of Havaya in a way that is, in fact, incomprehensible and ineffable. It's a difficult concept, right? So
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I just don't understand fully the difference of why it's different from the
from what
Mhm.
right? Well, good question. And that's why that's part of the reason there is so much discussion. But ultimately, I would say the difference is when we say atzmut mahut, right? So I I I talk about atzmut umahut as if somehow that's ineffable, right? When we refer to the ineffable, we refer
Mhm.
to the ineffable,
Yeah.
right? So you just said ineffable, right?
Right.
And I would say the difference is the recursive nature of the ineffability, right? So okay, one of the ways I try to explain it is, why do I write G dash D?
Why?
If if I were to write God, it
Hmm.
wouldn't be the ineffable name of God. It's English, right? It's
Right.
a translation of God. So when I write G dash D, right, it's also a reference to God, which is a reference to, right, and it's
Yeah.
turtled all the way down.
Yeah.
So how is G dash D different from God? Because it's self-referential in the ineffability. Because when I write G dash D, I am through writing G dash D indicating that I'm not writing God.
Right. I mean, yeah, you're doing something on purpose to signal um, your love, care, or whatever it would be.
Right. And if if everyone did that,
Mhm.
right? If everybody wrote G dash D and but they didn't have that self-referential nature in it, right? So I mean, why do we say Elohim? I could say Elohim,
Right.
but I'm reading and I say Elohim, right? It's keeping that itself in mind, right? That the ineffability it is constantly referring to, and in a very real sense, I would say that is what it means. V'hashavota el levavecha ki Hashem hu Elokim ba'ar b'shamayim mima'al v'al haaretz mitachat ein od, right? It is something that you have to hashavota el levavecha. You have to set it upon your heart. It has to be a perpetual thing.
Right, and it's also talks. It also kind of refers to the fact that it's hidden. It's like, I mean, you kind of need to make a an effort, a proactive choice. You need to make a choice to write G dash D instead of God, even though it's all the same in from the angle of this world,
Right.
but from the angle of the relationship, it's different. Like you're making an effort. You're making right. So that's kind of like why customs could are. I remember kind of listening about how customs have this. They have a grandeur in them in some way even more so than the commandments because they are ways that we the people are trying to show our love.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But yeah, there's some yeah, but it's yeah, I'm not catching it fully when I say it's a choice. Again, this is like this is the part of the I think the faith
It's
and
an
trust.
active move. It's an act. It's bitul. That's what it is. It is an active nullification.
Mm-hmm.
It is an active and recursive acknowledgement of the ineffability of God, even when we refer to God as the ineffable.
Right. Okay. weiter. הוא כגוף שהוא טפל לנשמה וחיות שבתוכו. This too is the case with the body, which is subordinate to the soul and life force within it. וזהו שכתוב, הללה השם בחיי, הזמרה לאלוקי בעודי. And this is the meaning of the verse. I will praise Avaya with my life, my soul, and I will sing to Elokai be'odi, with my body.
Yeah. With od, what's with that
OD,
which is more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. שהחיים נמשכים משם הוויה, והעוד שהוא הגוף הטפל משם אלוהים. For the life, the soul is derived from the name Avaya, and the od, which is the body, it's subordinate from the name Elokim. לפי שהנשמה אינה מהווה הגוף מאין ליש. For the soul does not bring the body into existence ex nihilo. It only provides it with life, and the body is therefore called od, i.e. secondary to the soul, in as much as it is the soul that provides the body with life. Okay. אבל הקדוש ברוך הוא המהווה את הכל מאין ליש, הכל בטל במציאות אצלו, כמו אור השמש בשמש. But as to the Holy One, blessed be He, who brings everything into existence ex nihilo, everything is absolutely nullified in relation to Him, just as the light of the sun is nullified in the sun. ולכן הוצרך הכתוב להזהיר, וידעת היום ושבות אל לבבך וכו'. This is why it was necessary for the Torah to warn, know this day and take it unto your heart, that in the heavens above and upon the earth below there is none other. שלא תעלה על דעתך שהשמיים וכל צבאם והארץ ומלואה הם דבר נפרד בפני עצמו. So that it should not enter your mind that the heavens and all their hosts and the earth and all it contains are separate entities in themselves. והקדוש ברוך הוא ממלא כל העולם כהתלבשות הנשמה בגוף. And that the Holy One, blessed be He, fills the whole world in the same way as the soul is invested in the body. ומשפיע כוח הצומח בארץ. And that He causes the flow of the vegetative force into the earth. So this is the life force revealed within the earth. וכוח התנועה בגלגלים, ומניעם ומנהיגם כרצונו. And the power of motion into the celestial spheres, and moves them and directs them according to His will. כמו שהנשמה מניעה את הגוף עם מנהיגתו כרצונה. Just as the soul moves the body and directs it according to its will. So yeah, so I mean he brings it. He's talking about the relationship of God to this world, and then the soul and the body, and like we spoke about with theology and the humanities, and how they interact with each other as well. So it's all these patterns are.
Yeah.
אך באמת, אין המשל דומה לנמשל כלל. In truth, however, so let's see where this breaks apart. The analogy of soul and body bears no similarity whatsoever to the object of comparison, godliness in the world. כי הנשמה והגוף הם באמת נפרדים זה מזה בשורשם. Since the soul and the body are actually separate from each other at their sources. כי אין התהוות שורש הגוף ועצמותו, מנשמתו, אלא מטיפות אביו ואמו. The source of the body and its essence comes into being not from the soul, but from the seed of one's father and mother. וגם אחרי כן, אין גידולו מנשמתו לבדה, אלא על ידי אכילת ושתיית אמו כל 9 חודשים. And even afterwards, its growth is not from the soul alone, but through the mother's eating and drinking throughout the 9 months of gestation. ואחר כך על ידי אכילתו ושתייתו בעצמו, and subsequently through his own eating and drinking. This kind of reminds me of also the basically I didn't read it, but Dominion, right? Where all like the or again when we're thinking about the humanities, they're 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 optimizing and they're working on their own, and they're not realizing that there's something that is infusing them with life from beyond them. And Dominion has right that idea as well for the Western world.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's yeah. That we spent a lot of time talking about that. John Vervaeke, in a very real sense, reveals to the people who really want to stick to the science and materialistic that that's where it falls apart. Consciousness is where very obviously our capacity to work to view the world materialistically just dissolves.
Right, because it dissolves because we are
Because it's impossible. I mean, that's how you end up with panpsychism, right? So the most materialistic the most materialistic view, scientific view of where consciousness comes from is panpsychism, which says this is conscious.
mhm.
Because either you have to say there's consciousness in everything, or the question becomes, so where does my consciousness reside?
Okay, I think I lost you there, but
Okay, so you have thoughts, and those are real things. Your thoughts are real things, correct?
mhm. Yeah.
So what generates those thoughts?
Um, my consciousness, my the self.
What generates that?
I don't know.
So one of the things people want to say is, oh, it's your brain cells. Your
Right,
physical brain cells, the electronic activity in your brain cells.
connections of neurons. Yeah.
Right. And that's why, I mean, if you listened to the discussions that Sam Tinneman was having with John Vervaeke, they keep on talking about these large language models. They use tremendous amounts of electricity to do the same thing that I loved how
Right. Yeah.
Sam Tinneman put it. He's like, my 2-year-old runs on mac and cheese, not a nuclear power plant,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Like, how does my 2-year-old's brain run on mac and cheese? And the answer is man does not live by bread alone, but by kol matzah piv shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right?
Mhm.
But by all that comes from the mouth of God.
Right.
And that is the stira, that is the contradiction that is causing, like, 4E cognitive science or cognitive science in general to just be like bending the knee to theology because they have to.
Okay. Okay. מה שאין כן, השמיים והארץ, שכל עצמותם ומהותם נתאווה, מאין ואפס המוחלט. This is not so, however, in the case of heaven and earth, for their very being and essence was brought into existence from not and absolute nothingness. רק בדבר השם ורוח פיו יתברך, solely through the word of God and the breath of his mouth. וגם עדיין ניצב דבר השם לעולם, ושופע בהם תמיד בכל רגע. And now, too, the word of God still stands forever in all created things and flows into them continuously at every instant. ומהווה אותם תמיד מאין ליש, כהתהוות האור מהשמש בתוך גוף כדור השמש עצמו דרך משל. Constantly creating them anew from nothing, just as, for example, the coming of existence of the light from the sun within the very globe of the sun.
Mhm.
So right, so this is what we just said. There's There's no account of where this energy comes in for the 2-year-old, right? It's gonna be just the mac and cheese. There's something from there's something else that we're missing there. Yeah. ואם כן, הם בטלים באמת במציאות לגמרי לגבי דבר השם ורוח פיו יתברך, המיוחדים במהותו ועצמותו יתברך, כמו שהתבהר לקמן. Hence, in reality, they, the created beings, are completely nullified out of existence in relation to the word of God and the breath of his mouth, which are unified with his essence and being, as this union will be explained later. כביטול אור השמש בשמש, and just as the light of the sun is nullified in the sun. רק שהן גבורותיו במידת הגבורה וצמצום, להסתיר ולהעלים החיות השופע בהם. Yet these are his restraining powers to hide and conceal through the attribute of גבורה and צמצום the life force that flows into them. שיהיו נראים השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם כאילו הם דבר בפני עצמו. So that heaven and earth and all their hosts should appear as if they were independently existing entities.
Right. This is the Shem Elohim, right? It has this capacity.
Right. To do that. אכן הצמצום וההסתר אלא לתחתונים. However, the צמצום and concealment is only for the lower worlds. אבל לגבי הקדוש ברוך הוא, כולה קמה, כלה ממש חשיבי, כאור השמש בשמש. But in relation to the Holy One, blessed be He, everything before Him is considered as actually not, like the light of the sun within the sun.
Your Aramaic is getting so much better.
Yeah. ואין מידת, I'm start talking to my wife in Aramaic. We'll see what happens. אין מידת הגבורה מסתרת חס ושלום לפניו יתברך. The attribute of גבורה does not heaven forfend, I've never heard that before, conceal for him. כי איננה דבר בפני עצמו, אלא השם הוא אלוקים. For it is not an independent entity, rather, Havaya is Elokim.
Correct. Havaya is Elokim. That's the whole point of this whole mimer. Yeah.
It's the whole point of this whole religion.
Of this whole religion. Yep. This is true. ובזה יובן מה שכתוב בזוהר הקדוש, בפסוק שמע ישראל הוא ייחוד האלה, וברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד, הוא ייחוד התתה. Right? So when we recite the Shema between verse 6:4 of Deuteronomy and 6:5, we have an ancient Jewish custom of saying Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto La'olam Va'ed. Blessed is the how do they translate this? Do they translate this? The glory, his glorious name and kingdom of his kingdom forever and ever, right? And the Zohar says that Deuteronomy 6:4, the Shema, is Yehuda Ila'a, it's higher level unity, and Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto is Yehuda Tata, it's lower level unity. So what does that mean? He va'ed hu echad bechilufei atvan. So there are various ways of doing changing letters, and in one of these ways, which is called atvan, which I don't know very much about, echad and va'ed have the same value. כי הנה סיבת וטעם הצמצום וההסתר הזה שהסתיר והעלים הקדוש ברוך הוא את החיות של העולם כדי שיהיו העולם נראה דבר נפרד בפני עצמו. Because why did God create this obscurity? So that the world should appear to be as if it exists by itself, right? So this is the great Kabbalistic idea of the veil God creates in the world, which allows us to make the mistake of thinking that God isn't there and allows for sin. הוא ידוע לכל, כי תכלית בריאת העולם הוא בשביל התגלות מלכותו יתברך, right? So the whole reason why God created the world, and so in Protestant speech, they have the five soles, and one of the five solae is sola gloria Dei. God created the world only for his own glory, right? And in Jewish terms, we say that God created the world so that his kingship and his sovereignty should be revealed. The Ein Melech below Am. Because you cannot say that someone is a king if he does not have subjects. Perush Am Milashon Omamut. So this word Am, nation, right, comes from this word dim and extinguished, as Rashi on Judges 5:14 says. Okay? Shehein devarim nifradim v'zarim u'rachokim mima'alat hamelech, because these subjects are things which are distinct and distant from the king himself. כאילו אפילו היו לו בנים רבים מאוד, לא שייך שם מלוכה עליהם, right? Let's say a king has many children. He can never be considered a king over his own children, right? Because there's too much kindred among them, right? There needs to be a distance. V'chen afilu al sarim levadam, even if he has many ministers or nobles. Rak berov am davka hadrat melech. Only when there are many people who are nations, who are distant away from him, can there be this subjugation, the subjection,
right,
of those he rules over. V'shem hamoreh al midat malchuto yitbarach hu shem adnut ki hu adon kol haaretz. Right? So we have Shem Havaya, we have Shem Elokut, and then we have Shem Adnut, right? Which is Lord, right? Which is Aleph Daled Nun Yud. And that, so let's use the graphics I very helpfully created. Where are the graphics I very... Did I remove that graphic? No, here it is. So if you look in a Sephardic Siddur, you will see that many times the Shem Havaya is written this way to tell you that you should, instead of saying Shem Havaya, you say Shem Adnut, right? You call God Lord. And Adnut is Davka in the Hey Tata, because Hey Tata is Malchut, right?
right.
V'ayta Hashem lamelech al kol haaretz, right? And Shema Yisrael is Kibul ol Malchuto, right? To recognize that he is the Lord of the entire world. V'nimtza ki midazu Shem v'Shem zeh hen hamehayvin umekayamin ha'olam lihiot olam komot shehu achshav, right? And it's so particularly Malchut and the name Adnut, right? Which bring into existence this world the way it is now. יש גמור ודבר נפרד בפני עצמו ואינו בטל במציאות ממש. It's as if we are something completely separate from God and not something that was created utterly out of godliness and is completely subjugated to God, right? It's as if we can chas v'shalom rebel כי בהסתלקות מידה זו ושם זה חס ושלום היה העולם חוזר למקומו בדבר השם ורוח פיו יתברך ובטל שם במציאות ממש ולא היה שם עולם עליו כלל. Without this attribute and this name, right? And this is something in the Kabbalah of forgiveness, it goes on at length about, right? Even those things which go against God's will, God himself has to constantly make them exist.
Right.
Vehine, geder ubechinat shem olam, nofel al bechinat makom or bechinat zman davka. So the word olam, world, which incorporates the word hiding, can only be applied if we're talking about time and space specifically, right? Things which are measured and measurable and finite. Bechinat makom hu mizrach u'marav tzafon darom mala v'mata, right? So you have the 6 directions, the 4 compass directions, and then up and down. That is place.
Mm-hmm.
Not zman, avar, hove, va'atid, or you have past, present, and future, right? והנה כל בחינות אלו אין להם שייכות במידות הקדושות העליונות. These are not things that actually apply to the holy supernal attributes, because they're in Atzilut, everything is infinite, right? כי אם במידת מלכותו יתברך לבדה, except in the malchut of Atzilut, שייך לומר שהוא יתברך מלך למעלה עד אין קץ, ולמטה עד אין תכלית, וכן לארבע סיטרין, right? In that manner, we talk about God's eternal kingship, right? Malchutcha malchut kol olamim u'mamshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor, right? V'chen bechinat zman, and similarly we can talk about time. We say Hashem melech, Hashem malach, Hashem yimloch, right? God was the king, God is the king, God is the king, God was the king, God will be the king, right? ונמצא שחיות המקום וכן חיות הזמן והתהוותן מאין לה יש וקיומם כל זמן קיומם הוא ממידת מלכותו יתברך ושם אדנות ברוך הוא, right? So thus the life force of space and likewise time, and they're coming into being from nothingness, and their existence as long as they exist are from God's attribute of Malchut and from the name of Adonut. So this particular name and this particular sphera. ולפי שמידת מלכותו יתברך מיוחדת במהותו ועצמותו יתברך בתכלית הייחוד כמו שיתבהר. Like we're going to explain that all of God's attributes are actually all completely united. Hilkach, therefore, gam bechinat hamakom ba'azman betelim b'metziut mamash לגבי מהותו ועצמותו יתברך כביטול אור השמש בשמש. Even these things are completely nullified to God himself as light in the sun itself. וזהו שילוב שם אדנות בשם הוויה. And that is the meaning of the alternating letters of Adnut and Havaya, which is I mean, something you will encounter a lot in various prayers, where the four letters of Shem Adonut and the four letters of Shem Havaya are
Yeah.
interspersed to the point where we refer to God generally by Shem Adonut.
Yeah, isn't there also in the Torah itself? There's a kri, and like you read it one way in the chtiv, the way it's
Yeah.
written is another way. So, but there it's like you just need to remember, I guess. Like I mean, there's the masoret.
You're right. And there are places where we actually read Shem Havaya Elohim. And if you're paying attention, that also makes a difference.
Yeah.
Ki Shem Havaya More Shehu Lamala Min Hazman Shehu Haya Hove Veyihyeh Berega Echad. Right? Because the ineffable name is beyond all time, because it is past, present, and future all at once. Kamosh Katuv Beraya Mehemna Parshat Pinchas, like is said in the Zohar. V'chen lamala mibechinat makom, ki hu mehave tamid et kol bechinat hamakom kulo, milamala ad mata ve'arba sitrin. Right? Because God, he is the place of the world. He is not in a place. He creates dimension and space. Vehine, אף על פי שהוא יתברך למעלה מהמקום והזמן, even though he's beyond time and space, אף על פי כן, הוא נמצא גם למטה במקום וזמן. He can still be found, he can still be represented and revealed in these things. דהיינו, שמתייחד במידת מלכותו, שממנו נמשך ונתהווה המקום והזמן, right? But when he unites with his attributes of malchut, right? From which space and time are derived and come into existence. Like our Christian friends would say, thy kingdom come on earth as in it is in heaven. V'zehu yichuda tata. And that is lower unity. Shiluv Havaya ba'adnut baruchu, right? The intertwining of Havaya and Adnut. The Hainu shemahuto va'atzmuto yitbarach hanikra b'shem ein sof. That which is essential to God's being, which is referred to as the infinite, ein sof baruchu. Male et kol haaretz mamash bezman umakom. Right? His kingdom come into this world completely, right? Ki v'shamayim ma'al v'aretz arba sitrin, hakol malem or ein sof baruch hu b'shaveh mamash, right? That everything should be completely conquered and nullified to godliness. Ki kach hu ba'aretz mitachat kamo v'shamayim ma'al mamish, right? That it should be on earth as it is in heaven truly. Ki hakol hu bechinat makom, right? Because everything on earth and in heaven is finite. It's within dimensions of space. Habatel b'metziut ba'or ein sof baruch hu, which is in truth completely nullified to God, who makes them all exist ex nihilo. המתלבש בו על ידי מידת מלכותו המיוחדת בו יתברך, right? Through being enclosed in this attribute of kingship, which is united with him, רק, except, שמידת מלכותו היא מידת הצמצום וההסתר. Because this concept of kingship, right, has in it tzimtzum, right, and concealment of contraction and concealment. Lahastir or ein sof baruch hu, right, and it hides the great infinite light. Shelo yibatlu hazman v'hamakom b'metziut mimetziutam legamre. That creation should not be completely nullified. ולא יהיה שום בחינת זמן ומקום במציאות אפילו לתחתונים, right? That we would perceive that God is at all times in every place, and thereby be in essence freed from these limitations.
Mm-hmm.
הנה במה שנתבהר יובן מה שכתוב אני Hashem lo shaniti. So from what we have explained, you can understand what it means when it says towards the end of the Torah, I mean at the end of Tanakh, right? I am Havaya, I have not changed. I am the Lord, I have not changed. Perish. That means she'ein shum shinui klal, that God Himself does not change. Kamo shahaya levado kodem briat ha'olam. God, just as He was completely, simply, right, divine simplicity, as the theologians call it, right, was completely without any dependencies. He was aseh before He created the world. כמו שהיה לבדו בריאת העולם, כך הוא לבדו אחר שנברא. Even after the world is created, nothing has changed. וזהו שאומרים, אתה הוא עד שלא נברא העולם, אתה הוא חולו. Right? You are God before the world was created, and you are God after the world was created. That there is no change in God based on the creation of the world.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I forgot. Sorry to disrupt you, but I forgot that I have like about 10 more minutes.
Yeah, I know. I that's why I was going too fast. Bilush bli shum shinui ba'atzmuto. Right, in His essence itself, there is no difference. Velo b'da'ato, and not in His knowledge. Ki b'yediat atzmo yodea kol hanivraim, because God, through knowing Himself, hu ha'imada v'hu ha'yodea, right? He is the knowledge, and He is the one who knows. Everything comes from God. Shakol mimenu batel b'mitziut etzlo. Everything is completely nullified to Him. U'kamosh katuv harambam zichron b'racha shehu hayodea hu hayadua v'hu ha'deya atzma hakol achad. Right, like Maimonides said that I just quoted about. U'devar ze ein koach bepeh la'omro. And this is not something that a human capacity can explain. V'lo ba'ozen lishmoa, and not a human ear can readily understand. V'lo belev ha'adam la'kiro al burav. So burio, and this isn't something that your heart can really get down to the bottom of. Ki hakadosh baruch hu mahuto v'atzmuto v'da'ato hakol echad mamash mikol tzad upina bechol derech yichud. God is completely unified in every way. Divine simplicity. Look it up. Ve'ein da'ato davar nosaf al mahuto v'atzmuto. And His knowledge of something isn't something that adds to God Himself, chas v'shalom. Kamo shehu b'nefesh ha'adam, like a person, shada'ata davar nosaf al mahuta umurkav ba. That what you know is something which adds to who you are, which is the outside of who you are. Shaharei keshadam lomed v'yodea ez davar. That when you learn something, kavar hayta bo nafsho hamaskelet b'terem shalamad v'yada. Right? You existed and you could understand things before you understood this thing. V'achar shalamad v'yada nitosfa yediya zu b'nafsho. You learned something new. V'chen midei yom b'yom yamim yedaberu v'rov shanim yodiu chokhmah. Right? And that's something that happens every day. Every day instructs you in something new.
And so the knowledge is not you.
Right. It's not something intrinsic to you.
Right.
Ve'ein zo achdut pshuta. That's not complete unity. Eila murkevet. It's something that is added on, that is composite. Aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu achdut pashut bli shum harkava v'tzad ribui klal. God is not something that can be added to. Ve'im ken al korchacha. Mahuto v'atzmuto v'da'ato hakol davar echad mamash bli shum harkava. God has no composites and no pieces and no parts. ולפיכך כשם שאי אפשר לשום נברא בעולם להשיג מהות הבורא בעצמותו, right? Therefore, anything that is created that is finite can't really understand God. כך אי אפשר להשיג מהות דעתו, can also not understand God's understanding. רק להאמין באמונה שהיא למעלה מהשכל ומההשגה, right? Simply you have to believe and understand that it's beyond you, שהקדוש ברוך הוא יחיד ומיוחד, that God is one and unique. הוא ודעתו הכל אחד ממש, that he is divinely simple, ובידיעת עצמו מכיר ויודע כל הנמצאים עליונים ותחתונים. Right? And God, through his knowledge of himself and his essential nature, knows everything that was and will be and could be. Ad shilshul katan shebayam, including that a little snake worm in the sea. Va'ad yetush katan sheyer batabur haaretz, or a mosquito. It's translating it. That's might be in the center of the earth, like in the ground. Ein davar ne'elam mimenu. Nothing is hidden from God. Ve'ein yedi'ah zu mosifa zu ribui v'akava klal ma'achar she'eina rak yedi'ah atzmo v'atzmuto v'da'ato hakol echad. God simply is understanding himself. We've got a bit to go.
Yeah, I think maybe we can find a spot to stop maybe in the middle. You don't like that? We used to do that.
Yeah, I think we'll stop here. Yeah. Right? Because God, in that he knows himself, right? Because he is the creator of everything, he creates everything. And therefore it is out of him himself. This is how a lot of our good friends fall into the problem of believing in determinism and Calvinism and various forms of nihilism, where they say that God, because he knows everything and he created everything, God's sovereignty means that we have no free choice. And that is a mistake, but that is a mistake that comes from this concept of this understanding that God is beyond us changing him through any of our actions.
Right, and that is a power that he gave us. That he bestows on us. It's a power and responsibility, right? I mean,
he bestows upon us this idea. We understand ourselves to be able to do things that are other than what he wants. But the fact is, ultimately, we have no capacity to do that which he did not know before we were going to do, and is not, in fact, as good as it gets from our standpoint.
Yeah.
Got it?
Got everything. It's all been
really simple stuff.
Really simple stuff, yeah. Cool. Yeah, very interesting. And again, connects to a lot of different things. So it's and I think it really connects to what you spoke about yesterday, and it came up in different discussions that I've been having. So it's interesting.
It's a beautiful thing when theology helps you understand the world you live in.
Right.
Yeah. So I am going to end the stream